真奇怪耶！错哦，奇怪的答案。OK OK，就 F 正确。
对啊，对啊，继续啊。
对，
嗯
你这个问题。
，don't be fooled. As long as the working method is correct, most likely it will be correct.
The true wow moment.
Wait, ready to go through the question together? Mm-hmm. So if you look at this first question here, what do they want from you? What do they want from you here? First and foremost, it says that when a salmon swimming up a river, a salmon swims up a river to breed, it often jumps up waterfalls, and figure 3.1 shows a salmon jumping above the surface of the water. On this occasion, the salmon falls back down into the river. All this is useless information. The salmon is 2 kg, so this is your max. The salmon leaves the water with a kinetic energy of this amount. This is your KE here, right? Calculate the speed here. So this one is a very straightforward one. More. You have kinetic energy, you have mass, you're asked to find speed. For sure, you're supposed to use the KE equals to half mv square formula, right? Right? And in this case here, it will be like 16.2 is equals to 1 over 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by v square lah, right? Which actually cuts itself, right? So from here, it's essentially square root of 16.2 is equals to v lah. So you'll get 4.02. 4.02 meters per second. Teresa, do you manage to get this?
No.
Oh, what do you do for this question here? What went wrong?
I put 1 over 2 mv square equals to mgh.
Oh, you can't use mgh here yet because you don't have the height information, right? And if you don't have the height information, how are you going to put anything into your mgh? Right? You're asked to find speed, which is essentially this part here. Okay?
Okay.
Right, then from here, then this part here is the one where you put KE equals to half, KE equals to mgh, because they ask you to calculate the maximum height gained by the salmon. And the keyword here, you'll always see this, ignore all the air resistance. Once you see the word ignore air resistance, and most likely it's going to be like fully kinetic energy converting into gravitational potential energy, right? Which makes sense, because this salmon must have some form of kinetic energy for it to gain a height, which is your gravitational potential energy here, right? So from here, then I know that it's going to be like KE equals to mgh already, because I'm assuming full conversion, right? So from here, it's going to be like 16.2 is equals to 2 multiplied by 9.8 multiplied by h. And if you do your algebra correctly, your h will be equals to 16.2 divided by 2 multiplied by 9.8. And you'll get 0.822. 是这样子写啦 but it's actually 出来的啦。Yeah 啦，是 same thing. More, anything below the fraction is still the same one. This is like if you press in the calculator, you need to bracket in right? 8.22 8.27. Okay, Teresa, do you manage to get this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then after that, it says that after the salmon re-enters the river, it has lost all of its original kinetic energy. State what happens to the lost energy. In this case here, obviously you're supposed to mention that it was lost to the surrounding, right? Usually, if the energy is lost to the surrounding, it will always be converted into heat and sound, which is why if you look at the mark scheme here, yeah, usually they'll say something the heating of the water, or you could even say like the producing sound or something, right? Usually heat and sound most common in the mark scheme most common in the mark scheme. So from here you're gonna say most of the kinetic something along these lines. Okay, then this question here, one of my favorite questions of them all. Let's see what you write first.
Yeah.
The salmon has a greater mass, it's this amount and then you will change the salmon. No, that's wrong. Teresa, what do you write out for this one here? You said that the height is more, less, or the same when you have a greater mass.
The
Sorry?
same.
The same, very good. How do you know? Why? Why will it
Because it's the same speed.
Very, very good. That's absolutely correct. So from here on, this here is actually testing your understanding, It says that another salmon of greater mass, maybe double the mass, right? Leaves the water with the exact same speed. And they're asking you state and explain the height of this salmon as it jumps compared to the height reached by the first salmon. Here, once again, from the same speed going into a certain height, it's once again kinetic energy converting into gravitational potential energy, right? Yeah, right. So if it's kinetic energy going to gravitational potential energy, then shouldn't it be a half mv squared is equals to mgh? And since half mv squared is equals to mgh, wouldn't these two masses cut each other because they're the same, right? They both have on one side, right? In other words, if I look at this formula, the speed of the salmon is going to dictate how high it's going to jump. Because everything else doesn't matter already, right? This is a constant, and this is also a constant. So for sure, it's not going to affect the height already. The only thing that affects the height is going to be the velocity, which dictates how high it's going to jump. Since it has the same speed, then it must have the same height that was achieved from the first salmon, right? So this is your reasoning. You're going to state that they both reach the same height. This is your statement. Then after the explanation is mass does not dictate how high the salmon jumps. Speed is the one that dictates how high the salmon jumps, not the other way around.
How high?
Oh, how high? Sorry.
Oh.
我想问你你觉得6 o'clock 会太迟吗？上课 ？If let's say 你学校直接过来，你觉得会好一点吗？
几点呢？
你学校几点放学？
我3点半，大概4点多。
都4点多出来5点Do you prefer it to be 6 o'clock, or do you want it to be earlier?
5点了。
5点5点或者5点半
5点，然后对这边 MSI。
我们要看一看那个时间 ，because today I was talking to Gilbert, I said that maybe 6 o'clock 的 timing 是太迟了，because 其实你们3点半就放学了嘛，3点半放学 ，you'll have to burn 2.5 hours 如果那些人没有回家的呢 ，so they have to burn 2.5 hours right in school. Like other schools, other St. John students
差不多。他们
算了，继续做看。
没有他们 burn 然后。因为我没有考试考试我才乖。没有吗？因为如果我有考试，我才会早挂。考试我4点多回到去我4点多回到去，然后我吃饭玩电话，吃到抖音玩到5点我就去冲凉了，玩到我才慢慢磨来。
算了
如果我这边5点的话，在那边呢，可以吗？
我们就是再看一看，你要不要还有时间？
就可以了。
8点半先吗？
你就是8点结束
Will that be better?
No。
不，
因为我觉得8点结束我回来我就是躺在那边玩电话，我就不会去读书我就很累我不回去读什么。
Okay, anyways, do this one now.
มันก็ไม่รู้คือ
A lot of writing involved in this question.
This is name of field, right? This is energy.
Hmm?
Energy. Name of field.
Name of fuel.
Yeah.
Name of fuel as in the one that is burned to produce large amounts of electrical energy. Like, for example, TNB. Do you know? Do you know TNB? Do you know how to produce electricity? Teresa, do you know how does TNB produce electricity or not?
No.
No, really? Oh, okay, good. Then you might want to draw this down for those who have never heard of this before. You know how TNB is our electrical provider, right? What does TNB stand for? 你们知道吗？谁而已？你死人头啊！Tenaga National Berhad, right? So TNB is our sole electrical provider, they are the only one that provides us with electricity. Do you know how TNB produce electricity? They actually burn fossil fuel. So let's imagine today this chunk of sources here, right, is like fossil fuel, coal, or even uranium, right? Which is what the power plants use to burn, right? When they burn this, right, what happens is they generate a very, 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 very large fire. Okay, this very, very, very large fire is actually used to boil a big pot of water here. Okay, when they burn this big pot of water, right, obviously what happens is after 100 degrees, the water will turn into
Gas.
steam. Yeah, which is gas, right? This steam is not just any ordinary steam. It generates a high-powered steam. This high-powered steam, in turn, is used to spin a turbine. It's actually used to spin a turbine. Do you know what a turbine is? A turbine is essentially like the thing that, you know, like the what's it called, like a windmill. There's these blades, right, that are being spun by the air. These are what they call turbines. I'll show you a picture later on. Anyways, this is a turbine here. Just for simplicity's sake, I draw it like this. And this turbine will continuously spin. Right, this turbine will continuously spin. This turbine is actually connected to a shaft. It's connected to a shaft, which is just a fancy term to say a very long metal stick, right? And this shaft is actually connected to, once again, another power generator here. This power generator will convert kinetic energy into electrical energy, which is how we get our electricity here. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is how we generate electricity in Malaysia, by the way. Okay, so it starts off with the fossil fuel is being burned. This will be used to boil a big pot of water. This big pot of water will generate a high-powered steam, which is used to spin the turbine. This turbine is connected to a shaft, which is connected to a power generator, which converts kinetic energy into electrical energy, because this thing starts spinning already, right? So for those who do not know how a power generator looks like, okay. Oh my God. For those who do not know how a power generator looks like,
What you're looking at is,
you'll learn about how this thing works more in depth when you guys are in year 11, but for now, just accept it first.
it's a very simple alternating current, or AC generator, a device that converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. This part is called the armature. It's made from metal, and electricity is generated by its rotation between two magnets. To show clearly how the generator works,
Actually, maybe this is not such a good video. Maybe this would be a better one.
Power. There are also natural sources of power from dams, hydroelectric plants, power just generate power that we can use to it.
Okay, let me show you the working principle of hydroelectric. Okay, look at this example of this is a good video. Look at this example of how electricity is generated, but instead of water pushing the turbine in Tenaga Nasional Berhad, the factory there, right? They use fossil fuel to burn and generate steam to spin the turbine instead. Watch this video.
Uses of hydropower. Hydropower, or hydroelectricity, refers to the conversion of energy from flowing water into electricity. It is considered a renewable energy source because the water cycle is constantly renewed by the sun. One of the first uses of hydroenergy was for mechanical milling, such as grinding grains. But today, modern hydro plants produce electricity using turbines and generators. The mechanical energy created by moving water spins rotors on a turbine. This turbine is connected to an electromagnetic generator which produces electricity when the turbine spins. There are two main types of hydroelectricity production: dams and run-of-river. Hydro dams utilize the potential energy from dammed water to produce electricity. A dam is a large barrier constructed to raise the level of water and control its flow. The elevation created by the dam creates gravitational force for turning the turbine when water is released. Some dams also contain an additional reservoir at their base where water is stored to be pumped to the higher reservoir for release when electricity is in demand. This is referred to as pumped storage hydro.
In case you guys are wondering what a reservoir is just a fancy term to say somewhere where they can fill or store liquids. So like they say a higher reservoir is just like the part where they store water, and then the lower reservoir is the part where they store water at the lowest position.
Electricity is in demand. This is referred to as pumped storage hydro. The second form of hydroelectricity production is run-of-river hydro. Run-of-river still uses turbines and generators, but relies on natural water flow rates of rivers, diverting just a portion of the water through turbines. Because run-of-river hydro is subject to natural water variability, it is more intermittent than dammed hydro. There are various sizes of hydro plants that produce electricity. Large hydro, greater than 30 megawatts, small hydro, 100 kilowatts to 30 megawatts, and micro hydro, less than 100 kilowatts. The Hoover Dam in the United States is a whopping 2,074 megawatts, which is enough to serve 1.3 million people. Of all renewable energy sources, hydropower holds the largest share of worldwide electricity production. Hydropower has several benefits. It is a cost-competitive form of electricity, even though the initial building cost can be high. It is quite reliable compared to other renewable options and pairs well with other sources as it can be used as baseload power. In some cases, dammed reservoirs can also help with flood control and be a reliable water supply for communities. There are also some concerns with hydropower, especially when it comes to large dams. Damming around has a major impact on the local environment, changing wildlife habitats, blocking fish passage, and often forcing people in riverside communities to move out of their homes. In addition, dam failures can be catastrophic, claiming the lives of those living downstream. Hydro plants are also not completely free of greenhouse gas emissions. As with most forms of energy, carbon dioxide emissions happen during construction, particularly due to the large quantities of cement used, and plant matter in the flooded areas makes methane, another greenhouse gas, as it decays underwater. That's hydropower.
Okay, so that was very nicely illustrated, right? If you think back here, this thing here is essentially almost the same working principle. The only main difference is that instead of the water spinning the turbine, it is this part where they use fossil fuel, okay, to spin the turbine. The fossil fuel will generate a high-powered steam, which is used to spin the turbine. And this turbine is connected to a shaft, which is connected to the power generator, converting kinetic energy into electrical energy. So, if you look back at the question here, state the name of fuel that is burned to produce large amounts of electrical energy. For sure is that one, no? Right. And describe, you're supposed to describe the process. It's essentially everything I said just now. So you might want to copy this down. Then you can more or less imagine how the whole thing works, right?
fossil burn 那个 water 还是 carbon
嗯
carbon 那个 water。
那个 fossil is used to is the source that creates the fire. So like say for example, 你要点火的话, you also need some gas in the lighter, right? The gas is the source. In this case here, how do we start the fire is by burning the fossil fuel. Then it will start burning and boiling the water. Okay.
就是这个它 steam 嘛，它就 make 那个 turbine。
Yeah. This high-powered steam is used to spin the turbine.
The point of this video is supposed to be the chicken and croutons, but I really just chicken and croutons put together. Very
Well, Teresa, are you done with this question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through it together. So, like I said, the first one here is definitely going to be fossil fuel, right? It can be any fuel. It could be coal, fossil fuel, or natural gases. It's acceptable. You must include the things that I've mentioned so far. For sure, the heat is used to generate the steam, the high-powered steam, to be exact, which is used to turn the turbine, which is connected through the shaft to the power generator, converting kinetic energy into electrical energy. Like however way you want to structure it is fine, but you have to mention these few things here. Do you manage to answer all of these points? Teresa, do you manage to answer all of these points?
Yeah.
Hey, let me just have a read at her answer first. I think if possible, it creates heat to generate water. It creates heat to burn the water where the water will come. It burns the water, it boils the water to generate high-powered steam. I mean, they don't actually penalize you, right? But you could have written it that way. The high-powered steam is used to spin the turbine. The turbine is connected by the shaft to the power generator. This causes the kinetic energy change into it converts the kinetic energy into electrical energy.
It generates.
其他的都是 OK 的，不要管它，那个就可以。Okay. Anyways, explain why the sun is the source of energy stored in the fuel. How is fuel generated here? You know, fuel are from dead dinosaurs, right? Sun is renewable. Or the fossil fuel released. You're not answering the question, bro. This one here is asking you why the fossil, the fuel that you name here is from the sun. So you're supposed to say that you know how fossil fuel is formed, right? Fossil fuel is from dead dinosaurs. Dead dinosaurs eat the plants, and the plants generate energy from photosynthesis.
Oh yeah.
It's supposed to go in that sequence. So like however way you want to structure it, fossil fuel came from dead dinosaurs. Which ate plants, which got the energy from photosynthesis. However way you want to structure it lah. Right, you must mention it. You must mention it this way.
What it plant? Dinosaur plant.
Yeah, the dinosaurs got the energy from the plants one, right?
Huh?
是啦什么鬼
Yeah, the fossil fuel is from the dead dinosaur.
Dead dinosaurs got the energy from the plants, right? And even if he was a carnivore, he ate another dinosaur that ate the energy from the plants, right? Like for example, a tiger will eat a cow that gets the grass, right? 对吗? So ultimately,也是 eat the plants lah.
Why they need photosynthesis?
And the plants got the energy from photosynthesis, which is from the sun. Okay, and then finally explain the process in A. Is it renewable or not? For sure, it's a big no, right? Because fossil fuel is not an infinite energy, ma. You will eventually finish using them up, ma, right? Because our rate of consumption is greater than the rate of production, ma. In order for fossil fuel to be generated, they must go through dead dinosaurs which died millions or if not billions of years ago, ma, right?
Dead dinosaur.
不是不用讲了，我是跟你讲吧。So for sure, it's not renewable because it can only be replaced over a long period of time. Basically, you can even say that it will eventually finish. We will eventually finish using up the fossil fuels. So for sure, it's a big no, right? You could say something like, wait, consumption. Now let's go for an easier one. Consuming fossil fuel. Well, this is not a good way to write it, so however way you want to structure it. I'm just trying to think about the shortest way to do it. Like that. It is not infinite. No, it is not renewable. As fossil fuel will all run out one day. Yeah, that's acceptable. 不用写这个 it will damage 的， but it's not wrong 啊，可是是不用写的，不用查。Okay, do the last one here. It's very good. How long do you need? 很快吧，这个。8 minutes 啊。
这是我solar energy.
喂，做完了。
我是 two skis，
Two skis 啊 you know like skis the one 你拿去滑雪的那个啊 yeah there's two skis
so can just go lah.
no there's two so it's below the area. Teresa, are you done with this question?
Yes.
Oh, good, very good. State the one, wait, check answer. State the one energy resource and explain whether it's renewable. For sure, you can write anything. State one of the energy resources. One. Apart from solar. Oh, apart from solar, bro. You can write any one that is renewable that is apart from solar, like literally wave, wind. All the others are biofuel, hydroelectric, right? Oh, you don't even need to say that it's renewable and state whether it is renewable or not. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me rephrase this question, guys. I wasn't reading it properly. It says figure 3.1 shows a solar cell that uses radiation from the sun to generate electricity. Obviously, these are solar panels. Apart from solar cells, there are other energy resources used on Earth, which is the radiation from the sun source. So basically, you're going to say anything that comes from the sun. The most common ones that come from the sun is definitely solar, wind, waves, and even which one? Even fossil fuel also is considered from the sun also, like we did the previous question, right? So, but don't write tidal. If you write tidal is from the moon's gravity. You can write waves, but you don't write tidal, right? Then state whether they are renewable or not. If you wrote hydroelectricity, waves, or wind, then obviously they are renewable. If you wrote fossil fuel, then it is definitely non-renewable. Understand? Okay, so literally you can write anything there. And from there onwards, you should state 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of using solar cells to generate electricity. The advantage and disadvantage is literally in my table that I've shown you previously, right? Like literally here, right? That's why I say you better read through it because in your exam, they will ask you to write the advantages and disadvantages. The most common one is basically for any renewable energy resources, the most common advantage is definitely it does not pollute pollute the environment, it doesn't produce as much CO2 gases, right? And then obviously it is cheaper to run now, because in the long run, for sure you will benefit on, because it's like free energy, right? But the disadvantage is usually it will take up a lot of space, and it has high initial cost, and also it is not readily available 24/7. For example, if let's say it's rainy season, then you don't have energy to generate already, right? So usually the three most common one, it takes up a lot of space, it is not readily available, and then it has high initial startup costs, because at our current technology, but we are already shifting towards a better future for all these renewable energy already. At our current technology and cost and everything, right, it's actually very expensive to generate, to set up all these renewable free energy. So it's not there yet. But probably in the next 10 years, I can see this thing being shifted very far. In fact, a lot of factories and a lot of big malls, they are already installing solar panels already. Okay. Okay, if you have no questions here, I want you to look at this next page here, guys. This next page here is a very simple and straightforward way. But 你学了是吗？这全部在 Excel。快点做啊！你这样子，对，不用听了，这样子。你这样子。Okay, so guys, the next chapter here we're going to learn is basically the two main formulas for pressure, right? Now, pressure has two main formulas. The first formula here, pressure, is known as force per unit area. Okay, this pressure is measured in pascals. Okay, it's the units for pressure. F is obviously force, which is measured in newtons, and area is A is area, which is measured in meters squared. Okay. Now, how do we know that pressure is equals to force over area? We can use very simple examples to check this out. Imagine today this is like a part of your leg or skin or whatever, right? Imagine using one finger to push down with a force of 100 newtons versus using your whole hand. Let's say your whole hand. Oh God. Your whole hand. Okay. Pushing down with a force of, once again, 100 newtons. For sure, you'll feel that you have a greater pressure on the one finger pressing down to any part of your skin, simply because that pressure is dictated by the amount of area that is in contact. Okay. So obviously, the smaller the area here, what happens is the greater the pressure. I think it's not only applicable for your fingers and your hands, right? It's also applicable for example, high heel shoes and flat shoes. If you ever watch your parents go for dinners, you always notice that they wear kind of like high heel shoes that looks very nice. I mean, it looks nicer than this drawing, right? But you get the whole idea. Versus a pair of walking shoes, which generally look something like this, right? I mean, it looks something like this, right? At the end of the day, right, usually all women will go through the same pain. After every dinner, right, usually they will try to take off their high heels as soon as possible. Simply because there is a lot of pressure acting on the legs, guys. Today, why is there a lot of pressure acting on the leg? You can look at this yourself. This is the area that is in contact with the ground. Versus your normal sports shoes, this is the amount of area that is in contact with the ground. Obviously, once again, the smaller the area here, the greater the pressure is going to be exerted onto anything, right? Same thing like for pin, like what those called thumb nails, right? If you put your finger here, right, usually you won't feel anything, but if you have any hard surface here, usually it will puncture through it. This is simply because the area here is very, very small. And once again, this generates a very, very high pressure. Then obviously, of course, the greater the force, the more pressure you have. It doesn't matter if it's a small area or a big area, right? As long as you have enough force, what happens is that will generate a certain amount of pressure here. Okay, so this is the first formula that you learn for pressure. you have any questions you want to ask Teresa for this one here?
No.
Good. So if you have no questions here, right? You can start copying down this formula here. You copy down this formula here, and then you start doing the sixth question at the bottom. Can you copy this down? Okay, are you done, Teresa? With the first 6 questions?
Yeah.
Oh, so fast. Excellent. Can you check answers for the first 6 questions? And see if you got everything the same also. Okay. The first one, you're supposed to get 10,000 pascals. Supposed to get 10,000 pascals. The second one, you're supposed to get 5,000 newtons. Right, the third one, you're supposed to get 0.125 meters square. The fourth one, you're supposed to get 2 million pascals. 换这个去 standard form 嘛，如果你有太大的号码 you're supposed to change this, so it's 2 times 10 to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pascals. Right. Then this one here, you're supposed to convert this into meters first, right, which will give you 0.8 meters square. Then your pascals will once again be 500 PA. And finally, this last one here, you are supposed to get 600 newtons. Did you get the same for all 6 questions?
Can you explain the last question?
The last one here, like this. The dimension of the skis are 8 cm and 150 cm. What is the weight of the skier? Weight, which is supposed to be a form of force also, because weight and force are both measured in newtons. Standing on 2 skis to produce a pressure of this amount. Right. So there's 2 skis that produce this amount of pressure. So first and foremost, you need to find the area first, right? Which is from these two is 0.08 multiplied by 1.5 meters. Right. I convert it straight away into meters, which you're supposed to get. 知道啊，你得明白成就得。0.12 meters square. This is your area of 1 ski, right? So if there's 2 skis, right? Because there's 2 skis, so you have to multiply by 2. So your area would actually be 0.24 meters square first. Then with your 0.24 meters square, you're asked to find the force, right? So pressure is once again force over area. Force would have been equals to pressure multiplied by area. In this case here, it would be like 2,500 multiplied by 0.24. And from there, you're supposed to get 0.24 times 2,500, 600 newtons. What did you do different for this one? I think you did not multiply the 2, right? Because it's from 2 skis.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you should end up with 600 newtons. Do you get it ultimately in here? Do you get the 600 at the end of the day?
Yes.
Very good. Excellent. Now, the final part here before we end the day, guys. Basically, this is pressure inside a liquid. Pressure in a liquid basically depends on 3 things only, which is your second formula for your pressure. Just now we learned that pressure is equals to force over area. Right now, you should know that pressure is also dependent on density, rho, gravity, and also the height of water above you. Okay, so this is once again measured in pascals because it's pressure. What's the units for density again? Do you recall, Lisa? Do you know what the units for density is? kg per meter cube. Do you know why it's kgs per meter cube?
over volume.
Because it's supposed to be mass over volume, right? Anyways, from here, this is going to be gravity, which is once again supposed to be meters per second squared. And this is supposed to be the height of water, which is measured in meters. Right, this is the height of water. So how do we actually use this formula? Let's imagine today we have two identical size pools. Okay, two identical size pools. One is filled with normal water, normal H2O, right? And another one is filled with salt water. First question, which one do you think has a greater density?
I think that's all the same.
All the same, which one has a greater density if I have salt water and normal water? For sure, it's salt water, right? Because if you think about it in terms of density, salt water has more salt inside the water. Right? That's why it's called salt water, right? And thus, if there's more salt inside the water, then naturally it must have a greater density. And if it has a greater density here, right, what happens is the pressure is going to be higher as well. Okay, pressure for sure higher at the bottom here. At the bottom of both pools, the pressure of the salt water is going to be higher. Okay, gravity will not change, right? Because it doesn't matter if your swimming pool is in Brazil, Australia, or UK, right? We're all still under the same influence of gravity, so gravity will not affect it. But the second thing, the last thing that affects it is supposed to be the height of water. Meaning to say, right, let's say, for example, today, once again, if I have two identical pools, one is filled to the bottom here and one is filled to the top here, right? If you ever went swimming before, for those who do not know how to swim, please go learn it. It's a very important skill. Are you one of them? I think it's very important to learn to swim because the world is made of 70% of water, right? No need. I think it's a very important skill. For sure, must go learn. But anyways, if you ever dive to the bottom of the pool before, you always feel that your ears there's more pressure, right? This is simply because if let's say I'm at the bottom of the pool here versus at the top of the pool here, what happens is, right, I have more water molecules acting on me compared to here. And since I have more water molecules acting on me, naturally, I know for a fact that in a deeper region, my pressure will be higher. And in a more shallow region, my pressure will be lower, right? Simply because the height difference here. Simply because of the height difference here. Same thing, if today I have a swimming pool that is much less deeper compared to this one here, this pressure also will be higher, right? Because I have more water acting at the bottom versus this one here acting here. Okay, so this is how you use the formula here. Pressure equals to rho GH. Any questions? Okay. If you have no questions here, then let's look into the statements and then you can start doing the 4 questions right here. Guys, if you look at this one here, pressure in a liquid acts in all directions equally. For example, a submarine experiences equal pressure on all sides of the wall. As long as the water depth is the same, right? It doesn't matter the water is acting here or acting from here, right? The pressure is still going to be the same, right? Pressure definitely increases with depth. The deeper a liquid, the greater the weight above it, and thus the higher the pressure. That's why if you ever try to poke a hole into your water bottles, you'll notice that the bottom actually shoots up the furthest compared to here and versus here, right? Simply because there is more pressure pushing the liquid outwards here. Then pressure doesn't depend on the shape of the container. Pressure at any particular depth is the same, which is a very, very common misconception between students, guys. If I were to ask you in these water containers, right, which one do you think has the greatest pressure? Which one would you answer?
All is the same.
All of them is the same, even though it may seem like this one here has more volume than this one here, right? Essentially, if you think back about the formula, pressure is rho GH, right? Rho GH means to say the density, all of them are the same. Gravity for sure the same, and the height all of it is the same one. And since all of it is the same, then naturally the pressure here, the pressure here, the pressure here, or the pressure here, all of them should be the same one, right? And thus pressure depends on the density, gravity, and also the depth of the liquid. Do you have any questions you want to ask, Teresa?
No.
Good, excellent. Copy already now.
要做完的，
本来是下个礼拜的功课来的。
为什么要我让你做啊？不做是？我早不做完。那个汇报你怎么不做？
下个礼拜 relax for you。
几时考试？
几时啊？
有个时间再聊，我们读到什么？I'm surprised.
Okay, anyways, I want to say, we're done. This chapter is the end of the whole general physics already. What we're going to do next week is most likely we're going to discuss and attempt all these questions here, right? Then the week after that, which is going to be the 3rd of March, right? We'll do one revision for all the chapters we have covered so far. Then on the 10th, we're going to go for an exam already. The 10th of April. 10th of April, we're going to go for an internal exam. This is where I feedback with your parents and update them on your progress. Okay. Oh, but Teresa, you won't be here already, right? Sadly. Okay, but the 10th is going to be the exam. Okay. Yes, no leadership. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop here today, guys. We'll continue this next week. All right.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.